Hello and welcome to Breaking Ground on iPropertyRadio with myself, Carol Tallon, the show where we chat to industry experts to get a view on what's happening on the ground and to learn about new trends emerging within the construction industry. The show is brought to you in partnership with Place Engage, a data-driven platform for more successful public consultation and community engagement for your next development project. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Natalie Ryan, Regional Ambassador for the Lighthouse Construction Industry Charity in Ireland. Natalie, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Carol. Thanks very much for having me here this afternoon. Good to see you again.
Likewise, and it's my absolute pleasure to talk to you today because the Lighthouse Construction Industry Charity is one that we would be very supportive of. We have indeed spoken to Bill Hill in the past. We certainly try to share some of the great work that you're doing, as I know so many of our clients and our audience do. But for anybody maybe who isn't familiar, you might just tell us a little bit about the work of the Lighthouse Construction Industry Charity in Ireland.
Yeah, no problem at all. So for anyone that isn't familiar with the Lighthouse Charity, we are a charity that supports construction workers and their families, construction companies. So we do that by offering a couple of different free services. So the first one is our 24/7 helpline. It's fully confidential. It's there for workers, their families, companies, anyone that's struggling, anyone that needs help, support, or a kind, empathetic ear. Then we have our 24/7 text line. We also have an app that people can download and access support and services, and also have a direct link into the helpline. Then we also have beacons. So this is where we've linked in with local centres in communities where people can go into local centres in a friendly, non-judgmental environment that need that social interaction. And then our final offering is our wellbeing courses. So we offer loads of different courses to employees, to companies, mental health first aid training, awareness on drugs and alcohol. And there's a course on menopause awareness as well. So I'd highly encourage everyone that's listening to maybe check out our website and contact me or the helpline if they have any questions about anything.
Natalie, we will share the links to the website and indeed some of your resources and that all important text line, because I think that's a super support to have. So we'll make sure that we share all of those links as we're circulating the interview. One of the things that I myself have experienced only over the past year, we would have been sharing the information about the Lighthouse Construction Industry Charity for the last number of years, and telling people who might not be aware. But actually what we found, and I'm thinking of one particular conversation I had with the wife of a construction worker only in the past year. I was telling her about the charity. She had heard of it, but she wasn't very familiar with what the work that was being done, and she definitely wasn't familiar with the supports. But most critically, she didn't realise that actually, as the spouse of somebody working in construction, that she was absolutely in a position to avail of some of these supports as well. So that's something that I'd really like to get across today, just how accessible and how widespread these supports are. But actually, even in my conversations with you, I'm learning a little more about the nature of these supports. So let's get really into kind of the granular detail here. First of all, who are you helping in Ireland? Is there a typical profile? Who's contacting you? Who can you serve?
Yeah, well, I suppose it's very important to remind and inform people that we do support construction workers, but we also support their families. So essentially anyone in the household. So whether that's a partner, spouse, dependent, anyone that needs that help and support. In Ireland last year, we received 281 phone calls. We provided 205 counselling sessions. We are supporting so many different people from different backgrounds, different areas where they need that support, whether they're going through addiction, whether it's gambling, drugs, alcohol related. We support people that are maybe going through domestic violence issues. We'd help them into emergency accommodation. We did see a lot of people struggling in the last 12 to 18 months that are possibly sleeping in their cars, sleeping in the back of their vans. They can't afford accommodation. They've gone through marital breakdowns. and we financially support people as well. So we literally help people with anything at all that they're struggling with. I'm also conscious that we are now in the summer, but that can also be a very triggering and stressful time, especially for families who are already thinking of the back to school costs that they're going to incur in August and September. So that's another way where we can help and support families. We can provide school books, uniforms, shoes, anything at all, help with household bills, help with a food shop, help with rent arrears. There is so much help and support there for people. They just need to ring through or text through to the text line.
Yeah, Natalie, it's a fantastic range of resources, and it's very responsive to the needs that people have on the ground. I'm particularly delighted to hear you talk about, helping people who are experiencing homelessness, because I think up until about 18 months ago, this was a bit of a hidden problem within the construction industry. And it was only in the last 12 to 18 months that actually, and it was through various reporting by charities involved in assisting people who are experiencing homelessness, where we realized that actually about 12 to 18 months ago, when the reports showed that almost a quarter of the people who were experiencing homelessness are working. And that, I think, was a real surprise to people. But and a surprise to us too, but what really shocked us is that of those working, a huge proportion were involved in the construction industry. Now that was, that was genuinely surprising to us, because here we have people who are traveling long distances to be able to deliver critical homes that are needed in Ireland, while they themselves don't have one themselves, for a whole range of circumstances. So actually, to know that the Lighthouse Construction Industry Charity is targeting that's a really important one. Can we talk for a few moments? And I don't know how much information you have about this, but you touched on a few things there in terms of addiction challenges, domestic violence. These are, I'm conscious that within construction, we're still dealing with a predominantly male demographic. And even though those figures are improving, they tend to be improving more on the office based as opposed to site based. But construction or domestic violence is something that we have seen in recent years. There's been a huge movement to try recognize that actually domestic violence is across genders. So it can happen to anybody, and people can experience it at any gender, any stage of their life, which I think maybe surprises people as well. So in terms of the types of supports, you touched on addiction, domestic violence, those experiencing homelessness. Of the people who are using the service in Ireland, what do they tend to be presenting with, or what are the main challenges they tend to be presenting with?
I suppose there's just so many different challenges that people are going through at the moment. But when they ring in to the helpline team, the helpline team will literally look at everything. So they look at their financial needs, their mental needs, their emotional needs, their physical needs. Are they safe? Do they have support? Do they need financial assistance? Do they need counselling? A lot of people are suffering in silence. And that's what we're trying to break. We're trying to break the stigma around all these hidden private issues that people have, and we're trying to encourage people to ring through for help and support. I recently met with the CEO of Men's Aid as well, and like that, we're trying to work together to make sure that anyone that's maybe reaching out for help and support through the Men's Aid helpline, if they're working in construction, that we can help and facilitate there as well. So there's a lot more work going on in the background in terms of trying to make sure that if people need support, that they get as much support as available to them through different avenues and locally.
Natalie, I'm conscious that you're on the ground, so you would have much greater insight into this than I certainly would. But in terms of the stigma, we see that the industry is saying all the right things, making all the right moves. Mental health has been brought into health and safety month and week over the last number of years. We try to celebrate in a more open way international mental health days and mental health awareness initiatives. the stigma, we would hope, has reduced a lot, but is that the reality that you're experiencing on the ground, or is there still are there still areas that people are really unwilling to talk about?
I think it's definitely going in the right direction, and the amount of support we have from companies in Ireland here, it's absolutely fantastic, and the amount of engagement we get through companies. But although it's going in the right direction, there is still a massive stigma around it. But that's why working with different companies, doing the site visits through the Make It Visible campaign, really, really helps to open up those conversations. So for anyone that doesn't know about the Make It Visible campaign, that's where we go out to visit sites. We have a very brightly coloured van, and the van has 2 construction workers in each van. They're also mental health first aid trained, and they've also got lived experiences of stressful situations in the construction environment, addiction, suicidal ideation. They're all fully healed, and they basically go out to visit sites across Ireland and the UK. They share their story very bravely and openly. They go through all the supports and services that the Lighthouse Charity offer, and then they encourage people to reach out for help and support. So we actually have a van dedicated to Ireland. We've had it here nearly the last year. Last year they had engaged with about 8,000 people in Ireland, and they visited 94 sites. So there's definitely great work being done through there, and they get a lot of positive feedback and great engagement out on site. They would also meet a lot of people, unfortunately, that are experiencing high levels of depression, suicidal ideation, and those employees are put directly into supports and services. So that's a really good way for companies to open up the conversation, but it's about keeping the conversation open and keeping the momentum going around mental health issues and struggles that people have financially, physically, emotionally, and constantly reminding people that there is support there through the Lighthouse Charity, through their company, through their friends, their family, their GP, because sometimes when people are in such a dark place, they simply just forget where to go, or they just don't have that information. So we need to be reminding people.
Yeah, I mean, it's a super initiative. In fact, I first learned about the Make It Visible campaign on social media, because so many of the sites that you were visiting, and 94 sites over the past year, that's a huge number to get to, which is amazing. And what you said, 8,000 workers across those sites have been engaged with.
Yeah, so the van that we have in Ireland, it travels around to sites for a week every month. It's actually up in Belfast this week. And obviously we're going to be doing a few more sites from September up till December. They take the month of August off to take a very well-deserved break. We're actually looking for a team in Ireland to run this campaign. So if there's anyone listening that would be interested in maybe working with us on the Make It Visible campaign, taking part in maybe sharing your personal story, visiting sites, and I suppose essentially being a mental health advocate for the construction industry, please get in touch.
Oh, that's a fantastic call out for somebody who feels that that they're in a position that they're ready to start sharing maybe some of the hard fought knowledge and experience that they've come through. I think it's fantastic. In terms of the supports, there's again, you've detailed their absolutely wonderful supports for the individuals. Some of the other important work that you do is around supporting businesses, and from my perspective, we worked across the crisis communications for over a decade now, and actually sometimes that means coming in and trying to help make sense of maybe an accident that has happened on site, or something that could be considered quite traumatic for the company, and what is the company, only all of the people contained within it. And that's something that you're doing at the moment. So you might just talk us through a little bit around the supports that you can provide for companies where, there might have been an accident on site, or there might have been some other trauma experienced in the workplace. You might just talk to us about what kind of offering is available there.
Yeah, of course. So we have a critical response team. So that's where we will work with companies, work with sites that have maybe had an accident, a trauma, a suicide on site. We will provide group trauma support. And then through the group trauma support, we'll be able to narrow down maybe a handful of people that need that more one-to-one support. So people that were maybe there when it happened, or people who were very close to employees that might have been affected or who might have passed away. So it's literally the whole industry that we look after, from employees to families to companies. So I'd like to just put a call out that if there is any company listening that maybe has had a traumatic event over the last 6, 12, 18 months, and if you don't feel like you got any support at the time, or if it's something you need to maybe revisit, just ring through to the helpline and we'll happily support you with any assistance that you need.
I mentioned that some of your campaigns I've learned about from seeing them on social media, not necessarily from the Lighthouse Construction Industry Charity itself, but maybe from some of your partners. And those partners are household names. They are the employers across the construction industry in terms of not just the support, maybe financial support, but in terms of opening the door to conversations and making that acceptable on site. How important are your partners to the work you're doing on the ground?
Very, very important. And like I mentioned earlier, the company supporters that we have, they're brilliant. They engage with us a lot. But it is important that they keep the conversation going, they keep momentum going, they get their employees trained up for the mental health first aid training, because people are more equipped and they're more confident to deal with difficult situations on site if they've done the mental health first aid training. They know how to deal with people if they're going through depression, if they're having a panic attack, if they're going through addiction, how to spot the signs, how to have the confidence to approach those conversations, how to signpost people, where to signpost people. So by having companies engage with us and encouraging people to access the training courses and direct them to the services where needed, it's essential.
And in terms of the activities that you have going on, because actually, one of the things I love, because we're talking about the very serious work that you do and why that's so important for so many people across the industry. But from what I observe, it's always done in a very inclusive way, but actually one that encourages engagement. So there's quite and fun might seem like the wrong word, but I think that you're really engaging people in a way that they might enjoy. So tell me about some of the events that you have coming up over the next couple of months.
So some people might be familiar. We just had our annual fundraising summer lunch. We had it in the Mansion House there about 3 weeks ago. It was very well supported and attended with just over 500 people. So that was organised by the Ireland Committee. And then we have a hike coming up in Limerick down in Ballyhora on the 11th of August. So the link for that is going to be live in the next few days. We have our Ladies' Day golf event in Carton House on the 4th of October. Then we're up to Northern Ireland for a fundraising cycle on the 22nd of September. And then we have our annual fundraising lunch in Northern Ireland in the Titanic on the 25th of October. So we've loads of exciting events coming up. And if there's any companies listening or any individuals that maybe want to fundraise for the charity, they can do so by registering to host a Lighthouse Day. So that's essentially where an individual or company will organise a fundraising event, help us fundraise for the charity so that we can continue to support workers and their families. But it can also be used as an opportunity to get your team together. So whether it's a barbecue, a fun run, a table quiz, or if you're taking part in a marathon, and just help us raise awareness of the supports and services that we provide. So there's loads of different ways where people can get in touch with us and support us.
Oh, fantastic. And like I said, I will share the links, not just to the website and the activities that you have planned, but to that really critical text line, because I know from speaking to people over the past number of years that text line has become very important. It's a very safe way for people to reach out when they're just not sure, are they ready to reach out for help, and that sometimes a phone call can be difficult to make, and we're very aware of that. And so that text line is a fantastic first step, that can really a first step, but really can be a lifeline to people as and when they need it. So I will make sure and we share all of those details as we're circulating this interview. And I suppose one of the final things that I'd like to do is thank you for the work that you do across the Lighthouse Construction Industry Charity, because I think, again, people are aware the charity is there, but maybe think, well, that's for other people, not for me. And I think by understanding the supports that are on offer, like financial, obviously, mental, physical, all focusing on the holistic well-being of the person. And we know the things that drive stress. And I would hope that we have learned from maybe over the past decade and a half, having come through with this industry, having come through the downturn, the crash, the recovery, we know that mental health was just not something that was prioritized, and people survived, but they survived, but are maybe carrying a lot of trauma from that time as well. That it's something that I would hope as an industry we could be much more open in tackling. And I think by normalizing this conversation, and that's why for us it's very important that when we talk about mental health issues, we don't just do it during Health and Safety Week or during International Mental Health Awareness Week. We know that actually this is something we need to be talking about all the time. And I think, to be fair, so many, I see it across social media as well, and I can see it through your industry partners as well, that people understand this is important. One final point I'd like to make is to just in case, I don't want to mislead anybody, just to let people know that irrespective of whether your employer is an industry partner, that the Lighthouse Construction Industry Charity is for anybody involved in construction and their families and the households around them. So just to be clear, but obviously we would of course like you to encourage your employer to get involved, because there's great resources available.
Exactly.
Natalie, for you, what's your, I suppose, ambition? Because, you talked about the Make It Visible van. We can see what a massive impact that is having within the first year. So, I mean, what are your ambitions? What would you like to see delivered for the industry over the next year or two?
I suppose I'm focusing more on connecting with the west of Ireland, with the south of Ireland. We now also have an ambassador who's looking after Northern Ireland. So I'm actually travelling down to Cork tomorrow to meet a couple of clients and visit a couple of sites down there. I think having a Make It Visible team on the ground here in Ireland will definitely help us as well, but it's just getting the right people for that role. I have met a lot of fantastic people over the last year who have bravely shared their struggles with me, but it's not a role for everybody. They'd be away from their home, their families for the week. Not everyone is comfortable sharing their story with groups and crowds, but I'd like to see the team grow there, and just see the numbers increase through the helpline, and that will come with awareness, and it will come with breaking the stigma around reaching out for help and support, because there is still, unfortunately, stigma around people ringing through for help and support. But the more we talk about it, the more we promote it, the more we raise awareness, hopefully the more people will be confident to ring in for help and support. It's only a phone call away.
Fantastic. And as I mentioned there, we will, of course, share the phone line, the text line, and a link to all of the resources. Thank you so much for taking us through that, Natalie, and also for the great work that you and the team across the UK and Ireland do. That was Natalie Ryan, Regional Ambassador for the Lighthouse Construction Industry Charity in Ireland. My thanks as always to show producer Katie Tallon and to the podcast production team at Hear Me Roar Media. Also, thanks to Place Engage for supporting the podcast and for making these conversations possible. And thank you indeed for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next episode of Breaking Ground. In the meantime, please be sure to check out all of the other Irish and international real estate and construction shows here on iPropertyRadio.com.